So hello all, welcome to you all on 80 Talks session number 20. Today we have Shinjini from D Tower, who will be talking on our financial career and about finance for women. So Shinjini is currently she is a co-founder of a fintech app called Salt mysaltapp, which she is making for bringing finance closer to women. And prior to setting up this app, Shinjini headed consumer bank for Citibank India. And she has 3 decades of experience in Indian financial services, including senior positions at RBI, Bank of America, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and Paytm Payments Bank. She currently serves on the boards of Paytm Payments Bank, Nium Forex, and is a member of the Executive Council of CGAP, the financial inclusion arm of the World Bank. She is a prolific writer. She writes in columns and articles, etc. And she speaks at various forums on these subjects. So great, very nice to have you, Shinjini. Please start your session.
So hello, and thank you for having me here. And thank you everybody for taking time out on a Sunday morning. It's a real honor and privilege to be here with you. I do see familiar people, and I want to say hello to everybody because we are neighbors. When Anil asked me to do this, I gave a date of today because I would be in Mumbai and I was hoping to meet everybody, but I am still meeting everybody, but digitally. So I decided to make this informal and keep it chatty and engage and ask, have you, give you enough time to ask any questions. What I'm going to talk about today is a couple of things. One is the title of my talk is Every Person is a Story, because we live in the same space. We see each other when we walk, when we are waiting for our car, when we are entering the building. And there is always that sense of familiarity because we have seen each other many times. But there's also always a sense of curiosity to know more about the person. And sometimes we don't spend enough time to engage and get to know that. And I thought it's a good opportunity for me to talk a little bit about what I have learned in life through the filter of my own career experiences and through the filter of what I'm currently doing, which is building a fintech app for women. So what I'll do is I'll talk about my life in retrospect, starting with 1990 when my career starts. No, I'm not so young. It is about when I started working. And, when you look back, when you have the advantage of perspective, you start realizing that the best things that happened to you in life were not things that you did or you managed to do, but things that happened by serendipity, that happened in the external environment, that happened to you unknown, and how they made a material impact on your life's journey and on what you were able to do and contribute. The reason I make that as a point of my conversation today, and a lot of times when I talk to people, is because there is often a sense of helplessness about our present circumstances and the inability to break out of whatever we may feel is holding us back, whether in terms of our professional careers or productivity or personal lives. But just thinking about it with a slightly zoomed out perspective helps us to break out of that. And I thought it'll be interesting to share with you and maybe later on hear your views on how things worked. So I'll talk a little bit about my career starting 1990, which is also the year of India's economic reforms, kickoff, and how my career got shaped by different events that happened since then and what were the things that I learned and was able to do. So I'll spend maybe the first 10-15 minutes talking about that. And as I tell my story, I will use 2 filters. One is the country's globalization and liberalization that we've all gone through, and the second is the filter of the invisible woman. And the reason I'll take that filter of the invisible woman is because a lot of my life's work has been in traditional financial services, including Citi, like Anil said. Bank of America, PricewaterhouseCoopers, organizations that are not necessarily doing anything special or specific for women, but a lot of my life's present and future, in fact, all of my life's future work is going to be in the space of women. And I want to talk a little bit about how I got to that point and why I think it is important for me to spend the rest of my life doing this. So I thought these are the two things, two filters that I'll apply as I share my life's journey with you. And I will have enough time to engage, ask questions. So I do want to again start out by saying a big thank you to everyone. If you want to turn your cameras on, please do. It'll give me more energy, especially Nidhi, if it is Nidhi Jain and Nidhi Jalan. There are two Nidhis. Okay, cool. So thank you everyone again for being here. Let's just start with 1990. So 1990 is when I joined the Reserve Bank of India. I was 22 years old, and you don't have to do the maths. I am 55 years old today. So when I joined RBI, I don't know if many of you know, to become an officer in Reserve Bank of India, it's like the IAS. You have to write an exam, you have to go through multiple levels of interviews and other things. And then finally they send you a letter and they say, this is, they don't say welcome to Reserve Bank of India. They say, this is the list of candidates who have been appointed and these are your places of posting, and that's it. I had been going through this process for 1 year. When I was doing my graduation, I studied in Patna. I actually grew up in a village in Bihar. I was born in a rural household. I studied in a Hindi medium school. I stepped out of there for my college. I went to Patna. And the only thing Bihari kids in my generation knew was to write exams. So I wrote the RBI exam. And by the time I got this letter, I was in Delhi because I studied English literature and I passionately wanted to pursue journalism. I always say that when I was young, the newspaper was my internet because that's the only thing I knew which helped me to connect with a world outside of the little tiny world in which I lived. And so I was very passionate about becoming a journalist. I was lucky to find myself in Times of India, Delhi, where I was studying journalism and also partially working because that funded my, that was kind of the scholarship that I had to study. And then one fine day I get this letter from RBI saying, you are on this list. And I don't know who to get career advice from because my parents didn't have a phone in the house. And so I went to my editor with that letter and I said, I always wanted to be a journalist. I would love to be a journalist. But now I have this letter and I don't know what to do. And he read the letter and he said, you'll make a great journalist, because by the time I'd been there for a while, I'd done a few assignments, etc. But then he said, this is a really great opportunity because I was 8th on that merit list. That letter was the merit list, which I didn't know, but he knew because he had more sense. And he said, so because you're so young and because you're so senior, you will become a deputy governor, if not the governor. I had no idea what a deputy governor means or what a governor means because I had studied English literature. I'd lived in a small place. Nobody in my entire circle of acquaintances had ever worked in a bank. So I just stared at him blankly because by the time I was already in, economic times. And so I was just learning about all of these things, monetary policy and money supply and all of these things. And then he said something which was very interesting, which is exactly why I joined RBI. He said, but I was posted to Bangalore. And he said, but the only problem is that they'll transfer you to different places. And I said, how's that a problem? And he said, because, you'll get married, you'll want to stay in a place. And I said, I stayed in a place called Patna, and all I want to do in my life is to just see different places. So how is a job that takes me to different places a problem? I'm going to do this. And he laughed and he said, okay, so you're young, you can do what you like, just go ahead. And that was how I joined Reserve Bank of India. I had no idea what a central bank does. I had never studied economics as a subject. And there I was taking the train to Chennai. Chennai is where our staff college was. And I reached there and it was the only thing I remember about the staff college was it was Chennai. It was very hot. I had never been to Chennai. It was very exciting to be on my own. but there was a plastic jug in the room, and it just broke my heart. I thought I'd got a big job and I'd become something like, I'd come out of my poverty and I'd become some elite person. And there was a plastic jug in my room and it just broke my heart. So first thing I did with the money that I had with me was to go and buy myself a nice white color flask. That's what I remember about my first day at RBI. And of course, since then it was a journey to learn. I realized how little I knew and how much I had to learn. And I had I was very lucky to find very good mentors already. So I walk into RBI and so this is why I say that there is always serendipity in life that determines the course of your journey. So when I had left media and gone into RBI, I had told myself that if I get bored, I'll come back to journalism, because journalism is a very open entry place. But when I got there, guess who was the principal of the staff college? Some of you are from financial services, so you will know. The principal of the staff college was Mrs. Usha Thorat. And she was quite a personality to sort of fall in love with easily for a young person. And we were all starry-eyed youngsters, and we just realized that, okay, so this is a place where you can become somebody like her. And that just became an instant aspiration, which is the reason I'm talking about this, is because I told you I'll apply the filter of the invisible woman through my conversation. And the reason it is important for women to be visible is precisely because of this. Because for somebody like me, coming from Patna, not knowing anything about RBI, being very, very confused, just seeing that woman there makes you instantly connect to an aspiration in your life. And that, I think, doesn't happen enough for a lot of women, even now, even with the internet, even with everything. And I'll come to that later when I talk about the solved story. So for me, as well as for other girls in the class, that became an instant aspiration. And my mentor officer was Mr. Mahalingam, who some of you might know, became SEBI member, and he just retired last year. And so I got a lot of very good grounding into becoming that person who came out of nowhere, English literature and journalism, and was moving into becoming a central banker, hopefully with a good career. And so people were investing in me. People started to invest in me already. Like I was 22 and people were investing in me, which was itself a very powerful thing. But the most amazing thing that happened to me was that I got posted in Delhi to handle FDI after 4-5 years of this happening and all the training and everything happened. I was in foreign exchange department and I was handling FDI in India, which if some of you will remember, 90s was the most exciting phase for Indian economy. So 91 is the time when the new economic policy gets launched and Rajiv Gandhi gets assassinated, Narasimha Rao becomes prime minister, Manmohan Singh becomes finance minister. I was sitting in the RBI building in New Delhi. The Ministry of Finance was next door. And we had hit a point where foreign exchange reserves were at the lowest in the history of India. And therefore, the whole program of economic liberalization had a massive sense of urgency. That sense of urgency is what I remember about my early career in RBI, because we were constantly thinking reform. We were constantly thinking, what more could we do to get more foreign exchange? What more could we do to, preserve more foreign exchange? What more could we do to encourage more exports? It was an extraordinary time to live in and to be a central banker. And then I was posted to investments, which I think till date is the most exciting job that I have done so far, because this was the time when the entire industry was opening up. So I used to have, I had 960 FDI files, and I used to handle technology transfer. So I used to have many technology transfer cases as well. Many cases you had investments and technology transfer happening together. And I had the entire automobile. I saw this country changing. So I saw from having that one little Maruti as a car, I saw Honda cars coming to the country. From being I still love the Udupi stalls, but we saw Pepsi Foods and all these Pizza Hut and everybody coming into the country, Coke coming into the country, coming back into the country. I saw the telecom revolution. So I remember sitting there and seeing Mr. Sunil Mittal come into the office, seeing HFCL, all the telecom companies getting built. So it was a pretty extraordinary time to start a career for a young person, being in a position of authority, so to say, because at the end of the day, as a bureaucrat, you do have to sort of approve things before they become real. And so it was it was a huge amount of learning, because I didn't know anything about anything. I didn't know anything. I mean, I don't know why, but you grow up in a tiny little village and you study in a tiny little college. But if you study English literature, all you know is somehow Shakespeare and Milton and Wordsworth and Byron and Keats and Shelley. And you don't know anything about the real world. And all of a sudden, I was sitting in this beautiful office of RBI, and I was going through massive files where people were talking about technology transfer and why they needed that technology, why they wanted to pay for a certain technology, why they wanted to pay royalties, how cars were made. And I was learning something every day. So I learned how roses are grown because somebody wanted to make a rose farm outside Delhi. I learned how how cars are made, because people used to import the full cars before they started making it here, and then different parts of cars were being made in India. So you had different collaboration agreements for those. But I still remember the most wonderful thing that happened to me was Kapil Dev was building a golf course in Gurgaon, and he wanted to pay royalty to Jack Nicklaus, who was the signature, partner or whatever. And we had to handle that royalty case. And it was, so there was just the most incredible things that happened for somebody my age and my, level of ignorance. So I learned a whole lot. But the wonderful thing or the bad thing about knowledge is that it always makes you feel like you don't know enough. So you get to a point of knowing things when you know you don't know enough. That happened to me. And then I realized that I didn't know enough. So I needed to know more. And so I decided to go to the US and study. And I decided to go and study public policy because I was 100% convinced that I would come back and I would become that deputy governor that, Ajay, my editor, had said was an aspiration, and Mrs. Thorat had said as an aspiration, because by the time I think Mrs. Udeshi had become a deputy governor, first deputy woman to be a deputy governor of RBI. And I'll just take a minute to tell the story of that, because it goes to my invisible women theme. So when Mrs. Udeshi became the deputy governor of RBI, some enthu young girl journalist asked her, "So ma'am, what does it feel like to be the first woman to be the deputy governor of Reserve Bank of India?" And Mrs. Udeshi replied saying, "What does it have to do with my being a woman?" And all of us who were then part of the RBI really thought that was such a cool thing to say. And we were like, yeah, really, like, what does it have to do with my being a woman? I'm here because I'm smart and talented and I do things and I work hard and whatever. And that's the arrogance with which I lived being a bureaucrat. And the reason I'm talking about this is because one of my life's biggest learnings as a woman, as a girl, has been that privilege of unseeing the lack of privilege that other people have. And that applies to gender. In my case, I took that learning as gender. But in general, that learning applies to class, that learning applies to economically weaker populations and race and every other way. Caste is another place where it plays out very well. Once you have the privilege, you can say that, what does it have to do with my being an upper caste? But of course you have the privilege, so you shouldn't even be thinking about it. But that's not how I thought when I was young, because that's when I thought Mrs. Udeshi was being very cool. And I went to the US to study. In many ways, that was a life-changing thing for me because first of all, we didn't have money. My husband went to do a PhD. I went to do a master's. I was married by that time. We had a 2-year-old kid. I had admission to Columbia. I chose to go to Austin because Austin was cheaper and I was getting student housing and all of that. And I was very clear that I wanted to take my kid with me. So we went and we were in Austin, Texas, and I was doing my master's. And I had my 3-year-old son. So in many ways, it was life-changing because even though we were never rich in India, but we always had help. And so just going and taking charge of your life and doing everything, taking charge of your child and just managing time. I think time management is the best thing I learned, even though I learned many other good things, because you just manage to be very, very productive by doing so many different things. And that has always guided my life's journey since then. But of course, I also learned many other things. I learned macroeconomics. I learned the entire GDP data. I learned various things about central banking. I learned everything. So, but the best thing I learned was what do I really enjoy? And I realized that I really enjoy meeting people and core of my being. That's what I love the most. And so when I came back to India and I came back into RBI, and it looked even more certain, because by the time I got promotions and I became a deputy general manager. So by the time it looked even more certain that my career was going well. But over a period of time, I started to become much more disappointed with my life. So my career was going well, but as I became a bank supervisor, you always interact with bankers, and everybody is trying to show you a film. So everybody is trying to show you a film that runs smoothly, where everything good is happening, nothing bad ever happens. So every banker you meet will tell you how everything is great and how everything they're doing is fine. And I started to get this very weird sense that there was a filter between me and the world, which was preventing me from seeing the world. And I didn't like that feeling at all. And that feeling is something I still very clearly remember. So I left RBI because I wanted to see the world without any filters, and I wanted to interact with people on an even footing. When I left RBI, people used to ask me, what does it feel like? Because I'd been there for 17 years. It's not a short period of time. And I used to say it feels like I've had a cataract operation, because I can see the world more clearly. And I did promise myself that I'll never do anything that will bore me again. And fortunately for me, life panned out in the way that I have never been bored again. I have done different things, and I'm not going to go into each specific career change that I did, but just very briefly, I first went to Bank of America Merrill Lynch, and I will just talk about milestones that happened and external things that happened that had a bearing on my career and my learning and my growth. And in Bank of America, funny thing is that I decided to leave RBI and join Bank of America, and global financial crisis, which had already started, but I had never really bothered much, takes charge. And 2007, when I joined BankM, the Merrill merger happens, and then I get a role combined in the combined entity. I learned a lot about equities markets, because Merrill is something very new to me. And so that was a huge opportunity for me to learn new things. And then I went to PricewaterhouseCoopers, where I was a partner. I headed their banking and capital markets practice. My career was, I must say, not shaped by my own smartness or intelligence or whatever. My career was entirely shaped because Dr. Raghuram Rajan came and became the governor of RBI and created such a flurry in the financial system that everybody was looking sideways to deal with changes and also to find more opportunities. And that became such a major driver for my consulting career that I was constantly traveling continents and countries, meeting new people. Everybody had an interest in India. Everybody thought India was going to do major reforms in the banking sector. And I was in many ways best placed to help people with that. So that really made my career, again, nothing of my making, but had a big bearing on my life. 5.5 years of doing that. I met Vijay Shekhar Sharma at where did I meet him? At a TV show or something. And we decided to meet up, and we had this amazing half-an-hour slot of meeting, which went on for 2 hours, which is very common with Vijay, those of you who know him. And I ended up joining Paytm as a CEO for the payments bank, taking almost 50% salary cut, but getting ESOPs in return, et cetera, et cetera. The reason I talk about this is because for many people who get bothered about career changes, I always want to say that in life, where you get to in the end is a function of what risks you took. And those risks will be with your physical body sometimes. Like, did you go for that meeting at whatever, in some far removed place, or did you, sometimes it will be about relationships, sometimes it will be about jobs that you will do. So for me, I think risk taking, like leaving RBI, was the biggest risk that I took. It was not easy, but once I took that risk, taking successive risks has become a habit. And so I've never really bothered about what I'm going to do next. I've just learned to enjoy what I do, like completely, wholeheartedly. So I got into Paytm Payments Bank, and the funny thing that happened, this is where serendipity comes in. was, guess what, demonetization, right? So I joined them in 2016 March, and 2016 November, demonetization happens. And then I learned like phenomenal amount of things. It's been the biggest learning phase of my life, I should say. Like every time I've gone into a new job, it has been a big learning phase, but this one was really, really crazy. But it taught me a lot about everything. Having said that, it also slowed down the bank. So while bank was a very big priority for Vijay before demonetization obviously went to a very different level. And so I decided to join Citibank because it seemed like a really good job. And I joined Citi in 2017, and I was heading the consumer bank for them. And guess what? It was a very exciting time, because when I joined I joined with the mandate from the global consumer bank head to actually make the bank more digital and to grow it in India and to take on competition. But guess what had happened in the end? Everybody knows, right? We were on the front page for having sold that bank. But having said that, I had nothing to do with that decision one way or another. I had already decided to move out of Citi in July 2020. I stayed on till September to work and till December for my gardening leave. But I had decided to move out because I wanted to build finally something of my own, because by that time, the idea of leaving a legacy behind was becoming a very important idea in my own head. With everything that I had learned, everything about the invisible woman, everything about the woman as the role model, everything about the difficulties that I later on became alive to and started to engage with and understand what really happens in the lives of women, started to kind of bother me enough. And I found the opportunity. The fact of the matter is that life is always about what comes your way, more than what you go and seek and find. So I have my co-founder, Chaitra Chidanand, who is the co-founder of a company called Simple. She's a Stanford graduate. She's worked in the Valley. She's a very smart woman, product builder, extraordinary person. She's been a friend for 7-8 years. She came in and she actually said that she wants to build something in the space of women and finance, because she's convinced that the way finance is done is not going to work for women. It does not work for women currently. It's not going to work for anyone, but specifically for women, because women's lives don't follow the standard template that consumer banks are built for, which is to say that you can do a SIP with a regular monthly plan, you can pay insurance as a regular annual premium, you can take a home loan for a 30-year EMI, none of which plays into the way most women live their lives, because there's so much of that taking breaks or earning different types of incomes, and that actually going forward, that's not even going to be a women's problem. That's going to be a problem for everybody, because most people are going to work in the gig economy, and whether out of choice or whether out of compulsion, they're not going to own as much assets. They are going to choose to be nomads and work out of different places, etc., etc. So it looked like a really good time to build something that would cater to that generation and that demand. And then I introduced Chaitra to Aditi Sholapurkar, who's our third co-founder, who was my product head when I was at Paytm. And she and I already have a great, relationship, but also a huge amount of respect for each other. She's just 32, 33 years old. So there's a huge generational gap between three of us. So 30s, 40s, 50s is covered. Actually, I wanted a co-founder who would be in her 20s, but we stopped at this. So we are three co-founders. We are building a platform. It's called Salt. If you are looking for it, you should look for mysaltapp, because Salt is a common name. So we've come to that. We are right now under beta, so you will not find much information about us on the internet yet. We are right now doing a beta trial with about 1,000 people. If anybody is interested, if anybody really has the patience and interest to be a part of the beta trial, then you can tell me. But otherwise, by about July end, you will start seeing the app on the App Store, and you can obviously start. I will look for everybody to become a champion of Salt, because what we are trying to do is to put power in every woman's hand to manage their own money. Because we realized that gender gap in finance was not so much a function of poverty or inequality, but a function of social conditioning. So actually poor women, or women who are in the villages, teachers or Anganwadi workers or nurses, do take charge of their money because they don't have a choice. And almost all women across economic strata take charge of their household money and expenses and optimize their financial decisions in a bloody smart and intuitive way, which is extremely impressive when you get into it and start trying to understand it. And most of you will articulate that as saying, my mother or my grandmother used to do this, used to do that. You will hear a lot of those anecdotes, right? Many of your mothers or grandmothers would have saved enough money and given it to your fathers or grandfathers when the business was in trouble, or when the family was in trouble, or when a house had to be bought, or a major purchase decision had to be made. But the writing on the wall is that small financial decisions are made by women with full energy, efficiency, confidence, and optimization. But the larger financial decisions always get delegated out to the men. Those men can be brothers, husbands, fathers, and that continues across wealthy women. There are, of course, exceptions to the rule. I'm an exception. My husband can't pay the sabji wala and understand the change he's got is correct, but I take all financial decisions, not because I'm smarter. I studied English literature and journalism. I just strayed into finance and made a career out of it. But I'm a living example that anybody who wants to do it can do it. So it's not that people are not capable. A lot of people tell me, oh, you're building for women, but women have low risk appetite. Or people will say, oh, but women don't really do it. And the worst one that I've heard is from men saying, oh, but my wife only spends on credit cards. She's not going to be investing. But those are all stereotypes that exist because we've lived with a certain type of social conditioning. If you think about it, in your parental home, people don't talk to girls about money. And that's something that needs to change. I've seen even 12-year-old boys stepping up and asking, is this house in which we live on rent or is it our own? And that conversation always moves well. Most of the time, girls feel inhibited to ask those questions and they don't do it. And I don't want to make this sound like I know that many people will say, oh, but in my house, it doesn't happen that way. And that's a really good thing. And I know enough households where it does not happen that way. But we spoke to 500 women. So what I'm saying is not born out of my own sort of bias or understanding. When we decided to build this company, the reason we did 500 interviews is because we wanted to hear it firsthand from the women for whom we were building. And these interviews were not done by a marketing agency. These were done by us as founders, just taking the time to speak for 40 minutes to somebody on the phone, asking questions about, as a child, what did you think about money? When did you made your first income? What did you do with it? How did you invest? Da, 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 da. So we got a fair bit of insights having these conversations. We still do them. We put out some of them on our social media. We call them Salt Story. Every Saturday evening, one Salt Story goes live. Some of them are very simple and nice. Some of them are very interesting. And they've given us enough understanding to go on and start building for the women that we think will be our primary audience. We built something called the money personality test. That was the first thing that we put out in the public domain. It's available on our Instagram. It's kind of 175,000 people have taken it so far. So there's enough data that the model has stabilized at the back end, and it gives very good results. And most people that do it are positively surprised to do it. And they always say, oh, this looks just like me. And I encourage that you take it. I encourage that you share it with every young woman or even young boy that who needs to become more aware of personal finance. I'm going to close and leave time for questions, but I'm just going to say one thing, which is a very strong conviction with which we are building. And I have a very strong conviction that personal finance will be the biggest trend of our time. It will be bigger than fashion, and it will be bigger than food, because it will be as big as dating and mental health, and because we are living in a world where you're pretty much on your own. You don't have a brother or I always give example of my grandfather. My grandfather came from a landed aristocracy family, which became very, very poor by the time it was his generation. He practically had no money, but he had no life skills because he had never been taught anything. So all he did was he just picked himself up and went and started living with a wealthier relative who didn't really mind one more person living that slightly lower than him lifestyle, and just being around to be a companion when they went for their whatever Dilip Kumar movie or Pan or whatever they went for. And that's the life that he lived until my father settled down and brought him home. I don't think my children have the luxury to do that, right? Where will they go if they don't earn their money, if they don't secure their financial future? they have no place to go. So either they will inherit wealth, in which case they will have to willy-nilly learn to engage with money. So if your parents have a home, if your parents have insurance policies for you, you will have to learn and do something about it. Or you will not have that, you will have more vulnerable lives, like the Uber drivers, like the Zomato delivery boys, in which case also you'll have to think about your life and your financial future. And that's why we don't think that we are really building only for women. We are designing for women and we are distributing to women because we believe that the gender gap exists. But the product that we are building is pretty gender neutral, because finance is a gender neutral subject. It's not like cosmetics or whatever. Even cosmetics is gender neutral actually to some extent. But yeah, so that's the core belief with which we are building. And yeah, I look forward to people trying it. And obviously it'll have bugs and improvement areas whenever we start, but it's a very exciting journey for me to be a late age entrepreneur. Like I don't fit into the mold of the startup founder, but I have two other women by my side who are terribly smart, and I do my bit, they do their bit. We are trying to build the best company that we can. We are a fully remote company, so everybody works from home. So that's another very good thing. We are able to attract talent because people like to live these lives where, you know, their parents live in Bhopal and they go and live in an Airbnb in some Lonavala and they work from there. Like I have all kinds of crazy people that work for me, but I actually think that's a good thing. I think that's futuristic. I think that's where the world is heading. Someday, of course, we will have to have a corporate office, but right now we're doing this, and it's been a hugely successful experiment so far. So yeah, welcome to my world, and thank you for your patience. It's been a long talk.
Great, very fluent talk, Shinjini. Very nice to hear your story. And so the floor is open for any questions, discussion points anybody wants to raise.
Everybody wants to just go and have lunch. Okay, Ayushi, please show yourself, woman.
I can try, ma'am. I just have a very bad internet. Just 1 second.
Okay.
But thank you so much. That was a wonderful talk. And although I haven't looked at finance as a career option yet, I really liked your journey, because I was planning at a point, and I still am looking at journalism. So I hope that wherever I go, I'm able to find my niche. But I also came to know that you do have a non-profit organization there. Yeah, you do have a non-profit organization called Indian Novels Collective, and that I looked up the website, and I'm very interested in helping out, supporting, and turning anything that is available. So I looked up that we can hold sessions for storytelling and story reading. So if I can just get to know a basic process, I would love to introduce that to my city, which is Jaipur. And I would also love to become a speaker if that's possible, actually.
Yeah, of course. And how wonderful for you to figure it out and to have thought through so much of this. We will take this offline. I'll just talk a minute about Indian Novels Collective. Indian, as you can see these books behind me, I grew up with, so again, fun story. Why we started Indian Novels Collective. I was in 2017, my son, who was studying law in Calcutta, came down with the chicken pox, and I had to take 10 days off and go take care of him. I had never in my career taken 10 days off to do nothing. So that was the first time. So I was there, and I could do nothing because you can't go out, because he was quarantined, and I had to just take care of him. And but I was healthy. So we were staying in a Bengali friend's home, and he had a lot of books, and I started to read. I read this one book, which I hugely recommend to everybody who's interested in reading. It was called, it's called Moner Manush. It's a Bengali book. And it's the story of Lalon Fakir, who was actually born in a I'm sorry, I'll take a minute, but I'll tell you this story because it's an incredible story and you reminded me. Lalon Fakir was a young boy in a Bengal village. He was born to a poor widow, and he what happened to him was that he worked for some zamindar. It's a very, very interesting story. I won't tell you the whole story, but anyway, he was presumed to be dead. So one fine day, as it happened, it was thought that he has what was that, big pox, smallpox, and that he had died. So they put him, if somebody died of smallpox, they did not burn that person, especially because this was a child. So they put him on banana leaves, banana trunks, and floated him down the river, Ganga. And he floated down to a place where a nurse, where a midwife found him. And she found him like pretty much half dead, but he was still alive. And she took care of him, and he came back. But his memory did not come back immediately. So it took time. So he stayed with her for almost like some time. And when his memory came back, he one day saw some people going upstream on the river who were going to his village. They recognized him. He recognized them. He got very, very happy. The woman the midwife who had given him life was a Muslim woman. And so when he went back to his village, to his Brahmin or caste mother, whatever, Hindu mother, she told him that he could not come inside the house because he had become a Muslim. And so she would have to find out how to get him back into the fold. But until then, he had to stay outside the house. He, young boy, but he felt very disheartened that he asked these philosophical questions. How was I a Hindu? How did I become a Muslim? Like, I'm the same person. What happened to me? So he left the home and he went into the forest. And he started living in the forest. And in the forest, he met other mendicants. He set up this is the most incredible story I've actually read in my life. He set up this whole community of people that were all, outcasts. So some woman who fell in love with some Brahmin widow who fell in love with some boy and therefore was outcasted and beaten up. And so he made this whole community of in the forest where anybody who was an outcast from the Hindu system, Muslim system, social system could come and live. And they created a truly egalitarian society there where nobody was the boss and yet everything ran very well. Nobody was a Hindu, nobody was a Muslim. And he had this gift for singing, and he used to sing these amazing songs, but he couldn't write. So they found somebody in the village who could learn his songs, and because he could only sing it once and then he would forget and he would sing something else. So there was a small boys who learned his songs and they started to sing. So that whole community started to sing these songs, and there is still the body of, so you must have heard the Baul songs. So Lalon Giti is a part of the Baul tradition. And the most interesting part of the story is that so one fine day, somebody came and told them that they needed to vacate the forest because they didn't have the right to live in the forest. And so he was taken to meet the zamindar. And that zamindar happened to be Rabindranath Tagore's father. And Rabindranath Tagore's writing is inspired a lot by Lalon Giti as well, because he's very philosophical and he asked these questions in his writing. So I read this book, and it was a life-changing moment for me because I'm pretty well read, and I thought I've read so much about Thoreau and Tolstoy and all of this. How come I never read about this person who was right next door to my house, right? He must have been like less than 1,000 kilometers from where I grew up. But nobody ever told me about this person. I never learned about this person. This person is pretty famous in Bengal. And I, living in Bihar, didn't know about this person. And then I came to Bombay after my son got well. And I started to ask my friends, have you heard of this person? Have you heard of this person? Later on, we realized that Gautam Ghosh had made a film on him. But pretty much everybody I spoke to, they were Gujaratis, they were Marwadis, they were Jains, they were Punjabis. Nobody had heard about him. So from there came this idea of creating a sort of a society, a not-for-profit, where we would work on translations from one Indian literature into, not in other Indian languages, because we literally can't, that's too unwieldy a project, but into English, because everybody in your generation reads English. And today is a very good day to have this conversation, because you must have read that Gitanjali Shri and Daisy Rockwell's book got the Booker yesterday. So it's a huge recognition for translation. So again, serendipity, right? I picked up translation as a theme in 2017, coming out of that very personal experience to say, I studied in a Hindi medium school. So I have read in Hindi, I still read in Hindi, but practically all the successful people in my generation have been successful because of English, and they don't read in their native languages, whether it is Gujarati, whether it is Punjabi. And we have read like thousands of books translated from those languages in Hindi, because Hindi is a language of translation. And we wanted to make English that language of translation. In fact, last year we released 2 books from Indian Nobles Collective. They are beautiful translations. You should try and read them. They are in English. One is Pachpan Khambe Lal Diware. That is done by Daisy Rockwell, the same woman who got the Booker yesterday. And there's another one called The Battleship, which is Ranangan from Marathi, which was done by Jerry Pinto, another extremely amazing translator. Both of these books are amazing translations. You can do a reading or you can share with your friends. It will be on our website. We spoke at Jaipur Lit Fest about it. So the Indian Novels Collective has been a very sort of lucky movement, because we have partnered with Times Lit Fest, we have partnered with Kalagora festivals, we've done various things, and yeah, that's a passion project for Ashwini and me and some of our friends who are part of this. And you're welcome to come and work with us, because we are right now trying to. So during the lockdown we were kind of slow, but we are planning to come back and do things again. So yeah, anybody else who's interested is most welcome.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Hi, this is Ruchi. I have no question, but this has been an amazing talk. Congratulations on everything that you're doing. Really inspiring and motivating. Would definitely want my niece to get in touch with you, and really inspiring. And yes, you're right, there is a gender gap, and yeah, we are all privileged, but I have seen it too. So yes, thank you.
Thank you so much, Ruchi. Yeah, everybody on for
Shinjini, this mysaltapp, if you want to speak a bit more about it. So will it be like what, a general investment app through which you can make mutual fund investments and trading and all? What all it will be?
So thank you, Anil. So basically what we are building, it's a mobile app, but we are also going to build a web app, which means you can also access it on your internet, because one of the constraints we realized with the pure mobile format is that you're not really able to learn very well. Essentially, it allows you to map your personal finances. So you can map you can track all your expenses, you can track your incoming incomes, you can set your goal for investing or saving, and you can so we put the power in the hand of the consumer, rather than us going and reading your bank account statement and giving you something to see which may or may not look accurate, because all your bank accounts must be showing you that chart where other is the largest category, because the way they capture data. So we've decided to give you the power. It's an NLP based tool, natural language processing. So basically, how you speak on WhatsApp, you can just go and drop a note there saying 30,000 rupees for flight ticket to Turkey, whatever you want to put. And the system picks that up and logs it for you. And someday when you want to check how much you've spent on travel in the month or quarter or year, you can just go pick that tag and read that thing. So broadly, the idea is to capture, same for investment. So if you do a lump sum investment, you can add it. If your SIP has gone through, you can add it. We will also be allowing you the chance to enter your bank statement or whatever else you want to enter. The idea is that you should be able to know your financial life at a broad level. You don't have to get very micro, but at a broad level, that if you spend 5 lakh in a month and you earn 7 lakh in a month, then the remaining 2 lakh is what you want to invest or whatever. So that's the primary hook for the app, your personal finance. But then you don't have to go anywhere else to do the investing. You can go right there. You can sign up for a mutual fund. We are not going to be doing single stocks for the next 2-3 years, although we've got a SEBI license to be a stockbroker, because we wanted to sell the mutual fund under the direct model. So basically, if you buy through us, through other direct apps, you will be getting more return, because your expense ratio will be a lot lower. So we are selling mutual funds to start with. We will be selling term insurance and very few. So we will not become a marketplace where any seller can come and list and people will come and buy. We will curate and give you very few products. So for example, Nika, right? Like, we realize that when you design for women, it's very important to design for women, because they don't want to waste their time, but at the same time, they don't want to be told that do this because it's the simplest option, because somewhere that's cheating, right? Because they're as intelligent as anybody else. So going and telling them that just do this because it's the simplest option also doesn't work. And at the same time, expecting them to spend hours and hours doing research also does not work. So we found the right balance. So you can start investing with 0 rupees, because basically, you start with 0, you pick the right stocks, you monitor the market, and someday when you feel ready for it, just go and do your KYC and plug in your money, and you do that. So that's what we've built right now. Gold, you can do digital gold investing. That's also ready. So when we launch in July, we will have digital gold, we will have mutual fund buckets, and we will have mutual fund, meaning both debt and equity. and we will have this personal finance tool. So these three things are ready to ship to go to market. We will soon add insurance on that, simple insurance, just health insurance and term insurance, nothing fancy. We don't want to sell ULIPs. We don't want to sell complicated products. That's not because we think women can't buy complicated products. We think nobody should buy complicated products. I don't buy complicated products. Okay. So unless you are purely in the business of, just doing this, that doesn't make sense. So yeah, so that's the rollout plan. Some stage soon we might be doing credit cards or mortgages, but don't want to talk about that right now, because right now the goal is to get the app in the hands of 10,000 women. Dr. Shubhada, you have a question or comment?
Thanks, Shinjini, for your very inspiring.
Please, I want to be able to say hi to you when I see you.
I'm not in a condition to open my camera. I'm sorry about that.
No.
Shinjini, I have a question. See, you said that this application will be for like housewives also, right?
Yeah.
And you are talking about mutual funds.
Yeah.
So my question is, what do you think? What is the how much is their knowledge about mutual funds? Will there be any guidance for them?
Mm-hmm. So, Dr. Shubhda, that's a very, very good question. And I always say this when we talk to investors or other people, that we decided very consciously to not be in the business of awareness creation or intent creation, because there is enough things happening in the ecosystem that will create awareness and intent. We are in the space of women who have the intent and want to take action. So when you have intent and you want to take action, you're prepared to spend money and learn. So you should invest 500 rupees and learn. That's why we built that zero rupee tool, that you come in, you put 0 rupees and you start learning. Because if you put hypothetically, so right now I have a hypothetical portfolio that is 1 lakh rupees. So every day when I open the portfolio, I see that the market is bleeding, right? My portfolio currently has all red, because the market is going red, right? But I know that is not real money that I'm losing. But I also know that someday I will put real money now, then the market will go up and I will earn from it, right? Because I can see the past trend of how the market has performed. So very basic things we will help you to understand. Very basic things like, how much is your expense ratio? If you sell it within 2 years, what is the tax implication? If you sell it after 2 years, what's the tax implication? Those kind of things will help you to understand. But our idea is not to not to give people too much of this cognitive overload. Tell me, when you buy a 10,000 rupee sandal, how much do you think? You don't think much, right? You don't go into the ergonomics of sandal creation and the leather cup components and pieces. It's only financial products that somehow made it obligatory on us to learn all of these things. And that 10,000 rupee sandal you may wear only 3 times in a year, and then it may just gather mold and be given to somebody else, and you won't think about it. But if you buy a portfolio of 10,000 rupees and God forbid the market goes down and current value is 8,000 rupees, you are just totally mind fucked, and you are constantly giving explanations to yourself and to everybody else. Why is that a problem? I bought something for 10,000 rupees, it's 8,000 rupees, it's still there, the market will go up, it will become 12,000 rupees. That's all you need to know. That the only thing you need to know about investing is that when it is less than my capital, I shouldn't have a emergency to withdraw it, and therefore I should have an emergency fund separate. That's it. Only one thing you need to know before you invest, that I have an emergency fund, this money will go up and down with the market. I will take it out when the market is up and not when the market is down. And we want to change that attitude in people, because it's the same women buyers who are making these split-second decisions about, jewelry, expensive items, right? Sandals, purses. And we want to bring that level of ease to buying a portfolio and holding to it. Because put 5,000 rupees, don't put your life saving into it. Put 5,000, learn, do 10,000, then do 20,000, do 50,000. That's how much we feel people really want to learn. And this is also based on the 500 interviews we did, because we also realized that there are 2 types of people. The type of people who really want to learn a lot, they never end up actually doing it. So some people who will say, before I learn to drive my car, I should know what the clutch does, what the accelerator does, what the brake does, what fluid happens, what is under the hood in the engine. They take much longer time to learn than those 16-year-old boys who sit in the car and start driving, okay? Or hopefully girls, but as of now, I've only seen boys. So we want to bring that level of sassiness to investing. Matlab, kya hai? Karo? Tumhara paisa hai. That.
Thank you so much, Shinjini, for the example. I hope your application will do really well and it will help our ladies. Thank you so much. Thanks, Anil, for the organizing this session.
And you must try it. Are you a doctor?
Yes, I'm a doctor, Shinjini, but I was thinking to go in investing, but as you said, that before buying the car, I'm looking into how the clutch works.
सोचो मत. Yeah, मत सोचो. मेरे से मुझे अलग से फोन करके पूछ. Call me and ask me. My sister is also a doctor, huh?
Okay.
My sister is also a doctor. Her husband is also a doctor. Okay. That guy is as innocent as a baby when it comes to learning money. My sister is idiotic when it comes to money. That poor guy took a decision to buy some insurance and now she is giving him grief. And I was like, but you never take a decision. He at least took a decision. Now stop giving him grief. Because I think a lot of time women don't take these decisions because they can blame somebody.
Just drop your, I think I will take your number from Anil and I will get in touch. Okay,
Please,
thank
please.
you so much. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
So anybody else? Otherwise, we can close the call. Okay, Shinjini, it was a great talk, very inspiring actually, and I hope I will put it on our 80 Ashok Towers YouTube link also. And I hope that more and more people, especially girls, daughters, and women, wives, and all, they should see it more. They can really learn and get inspired from the way you have spoken about investing, the way you have managed your financial career, the way you are talking about your own life lessons. So it was really fantastic and very fluent talk. Very nice to hear. And thanks a lot for agreeing to do this.
Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure. And I just wish we had met in person, but maybe at another time. And once my app is, fully ready, then maybe I'll share with you a link that you can include in the YouTube. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. And I thank all the participants. Thanks a lot for joining. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thanks for doing this, Anil. It's a real privilege. Thanks.
Bye-bye. Bye.
You have a question? Somebody had a question?
Some comment. Yes. No, it was just somebody thanking.
Oh, that's Mrs. Gupta saying hello. Hello. Yeah. Okay. I'll call you.
Yeah. Thank you.